Your Law Firm Marketing SEO Plan with Chris Walker, episode 152. Are you ready to make your law firm a profit-generating machine that will free up your time and skyrocket your impact? With more than 2 decades of business growth experience and having proven that you can be successful while prioritizing your family and your impact, introducing the Profit with Law podcast. I am your host, the creator of the Firm Differentiator 10X Effect, Moshe Amsel. Well, hello and welcome to Profit with Law. Another amazing guest interview today. I am with Chris Walker. Chris is the founder of Advocate SEO, a consummate SEO professional. Chris has been a student of organic search for more than a decade and a half. During this time, he's personally devoted more than 15,000 hours to SEO research, testing, and analysis. His goal is to help clients compete at the highest levels of SEO. And to further this objective, he's built his accumulated SEO knowledge into a powerful resource and SEO training program for lawyers. He's an avid supporter of taking advantage of all that SEO has to offer, focusing on using SEO as a strategic tool to drive new case leads for today's law firm. Chris, welcome to the show.
Yeah, Moshe, thank you. I appreciate it.
So I like to just give it, first question across the bow is just a nice little soft pitch, right, lob it right across the home plate there, which is, tell me about yourself. Our listeners want to know who you are. Give us the backstory of how you got into SEO and specifically serving lawyers.
Well, I'm an SEO geek, to be fully honest and transparent. That's it. I got into SEO because I knew that, I was in grad school and I was like, okay, I've got to, I saw the direction that things were going. The internet was becoming mighty popular, and I figured, hey, why not learn, how to code HTML, and get my feet wet that way. And then just shortly after that, I ran into search engine optimization and just kind of fell in love with it, really, to be honest. It's good for my analytical personality. Just kind of figuring out I always say it's me against several hundred engineers at Google, but essentially that's what we're doing. We're trying to reverse engineer, and some SEOs don't like me saying that, but I'm totally fine with it. We are trying to reverse engineer the algorithm, and basically give Google what they want, because in the end, that's what's going to get you your return on investment.
All right, awesome. And specifically serving lawyers, did you focus on them, or is that just kind of something that happened along the way? How'd that come about?
Yeah, I started digging in, and I was doing some research. I think I went over, I think it was 15 different areas. Large metro areas. And I was digging in, I was trying to see, okay, how competitive is the lawyer SEO space, right? Because everybody always says it's extremely competitive. Always have heard that, right? And so digging in, doing some research, and what I found out was that yes, it's definitely competitive, and some cities are more competitive than others. But the problem I saw is that 97% of the SEO campaigns that you could see that there was an SEO at play there, were really doing it sloppily or incorrectly.
Mm-hmm.
And buzzers went off for me. I'm like, if there's that much of a problem in this industry, why not dig in and see if we can help,
Yeah, absolutely. So it's interesting because that's how I ended up working with law firm owners. So I'm not SEO, I'm an accountant.
Right.
And I got a law firm as a client who then referred another and referred another. Before I turned around, I had 5 law firms as clients in my accounting practice. And I found very quickly a common denominator amongst those 5 law firms. And that common denominator was they all were getting coaching from an organization that was helping them grow their practice. They all had beautiful, nice offices.
Mm-hmm.
They all had a decent sized staff, and they all had cases coming through the door.
Yeah.
And all 5 of them had absolutely no clue what was going on with their finances, and we're literally transferring personal funds every payroll cycle to cover payroll.
Yeah.
And that was very enlightening to me in that here's an industry where the only business advice they're getting is from peers. So they're completely ignoring some of the most important parts of the topics of conversation. Now, I don't want to make that statement across the board. There's plenty of lawyer coaches that are doing a good job, but there's also plenty that are missing a lot of the pieces. And they're only showing you, hey, this is how I did it. They're not necessarily showing you this is how to run a business. This is how to, make money. This is how to bring money home. And ultimately, I mean, that's why the name of the show is Profit with Law. Ultimately, we want to make a profit. We want to not only pay ourselves a salary, but we want to have something to show for it. Otherwise, why the heck are you doing it? Go get a job. Right.
Right. That's kind of the way I see it. It's like, so many firms are doing SEO, but they're doing it the wrong way. They're not going about it. It's not planned. It's not strategically planned or executed well. And that really does make all the difference in the world. And I think, one of the instances now is Google has kind of I call it site quality kind of ratio. SQR is what we refer to it internally as. And if a website, has a bunch of garbage pages on it, or a bunch of pages that aren't really feeding the search engine correctly, not what they want, then the Google ultimately devalues your site. Now, if we can go in with a lot of clients and then remove half of the website and retain the rankings or increase the rankings, depending on the size of the website, that's a mighty big deal, in my opinion.
This reminds me of Consumer Reports, right? So when I'm looking for a big ticket purchase, like a car or an expensive vacuum cleaner or some other appliance, right? I'll open Consumer Reports app on my phone and I'll look at their reviews, and they rate everybody with a total metric score, and that's how they rank the ratings. And that metric is defined from 5 main areas that they're checking on that specific thing. They're looking at ease of use, quality, price, and they're giving a rating for each one of those. So if we look at somebody's site quality ranking, right, and that score, what are the main inputs that Google is looking at in order to rank that site, in order to give it that score?
So they really do want you to feed them, right? That's the goal. They want more high quality content that they can show to their users. So if you can give them that, that's ideal. And what I mean by that is, okay, if you want to write about a particular topic, okay, put that into Google, do a search on it first, right? And see what comes up. What are they showing? What are they ranking and stacking 1 to 10? What kind of articles, what kind of pages are there? And if it's all one kind of article, or you see a smattering of a couple different kinds of things, you want to write you want to make it yours, of course, but you want to do something similar, right? Because if you want to rank in Google, you have to give them what they want. And I don't want to make it complicated, because I don't think it really is. But if you do that search, Google's showing you exactly what they want. And, if you're not giving them a resource, and that's what we say, every page a resource, right? So if we create a page, we want to make it a resource, because there's no other reason to create a web page, right? And so creating that resource, putting it on your website around that particular keyword set is going to set you apart so far from everybody else, because everybody else right now, and this is sad, it makes me weep a little bit, but you might as well be burning piles of money essentially, right?
Right.
Because
Yeah.
you're creating the content, and then it's from a Google perspective, right? You, like you
Right.
said, you can repurpose it and put it somewhere else. It might be working for you great, but from a search engine optimization perspective, it's not doing you any good.
So I understand what you're saying, that, you need to, and I'm assuming that these are blog posts that we're talking about, or deep information pages where
Yeah.
we're giving actual information. It's not like the homepage where we're talking about the firm. So how I understand this page needs to be a resource. Google needs to see it as a valuable resource in order to rank it, in order to use it to feed the engine, right?
Mhm.
What attributes does that page need to have in order for Google to say, wow, this is a page that is going to be valuable for me to present to somebody who's searching?
Well, the attributes the page needs to have, and it really does come back to natural language processing. So Google's algorithm has really improved in the last few years, and it's all about that natural language. And are you kind of matching up with what everybody else on page one has? But also, and this is why we talk about site quality ratio, is that what is the overall site done, right? Does Google recognize your entity, and they recognize your website as an entity, right? And so what do they think that your website's about? That's important. And if you do a quick just example, if you take so you can go to Google photo search, right? And you can type in your brand name, and then you can see what keywords up top are they showing for your brand name, and that's going to tell you what they think of your website. That's a quick way to find out.
Chris, that's really interesting. I'm curious to know why you specifically chose Google Photos, because you can do a search in Google Search and still see related searches at the bottom of the page, right? What's special about the photo section that you latched onto that as where to go?
Well, it's just where they're giving us clues about entities, right? So if you go to the Google Images section and you type in your brand, and then you could see kind of what words Google is associating with your brand. That's example of entity search, right? And that's what we're talking about when Google's rewarding a page on a particular topic, they're looking at your entity, your website overall. So back in the day, you used to be able to throw up any kind of content. And if the website was large enough, it would, you could throw a page up. You could be in the nutrition space and be blogging about, personal injury law in, Phoenix, Arizona, and you could throw it up and you could be ranking, right? Doesn't make any sense just because of the authority of the website. Well, now that's different, and they're looking at the website, your particular website that page is on, and they're classifying your entity. And how do they see your entity? What are you about? What is your website about? What are the people that are linking to you? What are your pages about? And content. And that's why the site quality ratio is so important, is because you really do have to feed Google exactly what they want, so that, if you want to take advantage of organic search, um, you can milk them for everything they're worth, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Essentially.
Yeah, and I know that back in the day, but Google has done a great job with their algorithm back in the day.
Yeah.
That there were definitely ways to game the system, get backlinks. There were services where you could buy backlinks
Oh yeah.
from sites to to link back to your site in order to increase your ranking in Google. But I want to move away from that for a moment. I want to talk about a more generalized question that I have around SEO. and that is, for my clients, I generally push them away from SEO as the front runner of marketing that they try to accomplish. Because what happens is whether they're doing it themselves or they're hiring an agency, it takes time to rank.
Yeah.
It takes
Yeah.
time to start showing up in search. It takes time to start ranking high enough. And you're not going to hit it on the first go, right? Often you got to try some longer tail keywords. You got to try to really dig deep in order to get ranked higher. And also it builds on itself, right? So your site quality ranking improves as you produce more good quality content. So there's this time lag from when you start making efforts, whether financial or your own time, in producing this and getting your site up to speed, to when it actually pays results. And on top of that, there's only one winner who ends up placing number one, right?
Sure.
And there's only the top three that place in the top three. And sometimes, often with the search that you're chasing after, you're going after some companies that are, they're referral companies where they're listing companies of attorneys, stuff like that, where you're competing against a behemoth website that's got a ton more value than you do. How do you expect to unseat them from their throne in that spot? And I'm not saying it can't be done, but it's definitely a job to overcome that. So because of that, I often recommend to my clients that SEO it's a tool in the arsenal, but maybe it shouldn't be the first thing that you're trying in order to try to gain clients that are outside of just referrals. I'm curious to know what your take is on that, as far as when is the right time for a law firm to start thinking about implementing SEO, and what kind of time frame should they give to be able to start gauging whether or not what they're doing is working, is making strides.
Yeah, I mean that's the difficult thing with SEO, right? And I think for a lot of people, because SEO has traditionally taken time, right? And that's still what SEO companies will tell you. Law firm SEO companies say, "Oh yeah, it's going to take months and months and months," and you should say, "Okay, yep, sounds good. We'll do this for months." The problem goes back to, if you're not doing it the right way, then you're really spinning your wheels and you're really, really in trouble. Yeah, I mean, if you're operating on a shoestring budget, SEO is definitely not your first thing you're looking at, right? But I think that today, if you're not looking at getting clients from online resources like Google, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, whatever it is, then you're looking backwards. You do need to get started. But like I said, it's not, maybe you can start writing some content on your own. But as long as you're doing it the right way, right? If you're starting out correctly, then there won't be any problems. But yeah, it's definitely a long-term play, and it's dependent. And everybody always wants to know, well, how long till I see results? That's the big question, right?
Absolutely.
It is totally, and nobody wants to hear this, it's totally dependent on your competition. It's how long have they been working towards that goal?
Right. And on
And
top of that, you had said that the lawyer space is supposedly a highly competitive space. And, I think that it's important to make the differentiation that you can't lump legal into one category. Every single practice area has its own experience on online on SEO and how
right.
competitive it is. And I know I was talking to another SEO person about a year ago where we were looking at potentially doing a collaboration on some sort of SEO thing. And interestingly, he was doing research, and he had found that specifically medical malpractice attorneys was a fairly highly searched area with a fairly low amount of content. So in other words, it's not so competitive, and therefore there's room for attorneys who are in that space to start creating content and really rank pretty quickly for that, for that content. So if somebody wants to research that and understand where they stand in their industry, where do they start? Like, what are the steps to do that? And I don't need you to give us the, click here, do this, but what are the basic tools that they're going to use for that, and the basic process they're going to follow to look at that?
Yeah, I like to use Google first off. So I usually, if I'm going into an arena, I want to see what my competitors are doing. So do a search for the keyword you're targeting, um, and basically do a site colon and then their URL and see how many pages do they have. Right, that's the first indicator of what you're up against. Do they have 7, 8, 900 pages, or do they have 112? Right.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then another great tool I love to use is Hrefs.
Mm-hmm.
And so I plop it in there and I see, okay, they've got a lot of pages, but what are they ranking for? How many pages are actually ranking? And what kind of keywords are they ranking? If it's a huge website and they've only got a few pages that are ranking, well, the competition's probably fairly thin, right? But you do that across all your competitors, you kind of see what you're up against. You're going to be up against a lot of content. And I think traditionally in the legal space, SEO firms have thrown a ton of content up, right? But that doesn't always mean it's fantastic content. So you wish you could see the back end of some of the Google Analytics things, but if you're looking at your website, your own website is, are these pages getting any traffic? Are they actually, my pages that I do have on my website, are they actually showing up for searches, right? So you're going to see a list of pages and impressions in Google Analytics, and what pages aren't getting any impressions, and you go in there and analyze and see, why is that? Why are we not getting that? You wish you could do that with all the competitors, right? It just takes a lot of digging essentially, but that's what we do is we see, okay, where are you compared to your competitors, and you know what kind of slog are we up against
Right.
essentially.
Now, a couple of things. First of all, I want to clarify Hrefs, it starts with an A, correct? It's
Yes, yes, yes,
Href.
yes.
So for listeners who want to go check it out, that's how you spell it. It's an SEO tool, very popular amongst SEO geeks like Chris. So my next question is when you're when you're approaching blog writing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you write a blog post and then figure out how to maximize the SEO usability of it? In other words, you go back and you say, okay, now that I've got this blog post, let me figure out what keywords I expect it to rank for. Let me make sure it's written in a way that those keywords are going to be displayed to Google and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Or are you starting with the search and saying, okay, this is the keyword I want to rank for. Now let me write a blog post around that keyword. Which of those two approaches works better for somebody who's, I guess, just getting started with this or wants to change the script because they've been doing this for a while and haven't seen the
Yeah.
result?
Yeah. Well, you're going to need an Href subscription, like we talked about. I ideally, because, okay, so they are purchasing internet service provider data, which is not, I mean, it's the most accurate out there of the information we can get around what people are actually searching for. So if you think somebody's searching on a particular topic, well, plop it into Ahrefs, and then you will get to see what kind of numbers are surrounding that particular keyword, right? And if you thought, oh man, people are really going to hone in on this idea, and you plop it in Ahrefs and there's nothing, well, then you may need to go back to the drawing board or type in that particular search into Google, see what is showing up, and then see what the keywords they're honing in, plop it into Ahrefs and see if it's different than what you thought. So that's really the first step. We look at search volume to make sure that people are actually searching for a term, because like we said before, you want to be able to feed Google, and that's exactly what we're doing. And if we're feeding them, by that I mean going after keywords that are actually being searched for. And then what else? I'm sorry, I got lost a little bit on your
That's okay. So basically, the question was, do we start with searching for keywords, then write a blog post around it, or do we start with writing a blog post and then try to maximize that blog post for a search term? And
yeah, okay.
going into Hrefs and searching the term and getting, figuring out what we're going to have it rank for. But which came first, the chicken or the egg? Like, what are we choosing a blog post that we think is going to be valuable to our target market, and then trying to figure out how to get it to rank well, or
Yeah.
are we starting with a search term and saying, okay, what is the content they need to write around this to get this to rank?
Well, yeah, if you think it's valuable for your market, you want to write about it, right? And then do the keyword research, um, and then you want to feed them the natural language afterwards. So you want to go into Google and see what's actually showing up, what's in the top 10, because they're giving you the answers to your question, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you can produce something similar and with more value, then fantastic. That's what I would go after. But it's got to be a resource, as we talked about before. Every page a resource. So if you're not following that motto, you're basically you're not going to give Google what it wants, and it's not going to reward you.
Yeah. So, okay. So there's a couple of things that I've seen personally on Google, and I'm sure that there's a science to it. One is when I do a search, sometimes Google will take a blog post that has a list and it'll put that right at the top, and it'll preview the list without even clicking through to the site.
Yeah.
And I don't know what that's called in SEO terminology, but is there a way to strategically use things like that in order to get your thing to rank first, because you've got something that Google can use to present in a preview mode? That's question number one. I'm going to ask you the next one after you answer that.
Yeah, it used to be more appealing than it is now, because the featured snippet, you could actually write content a certain way. You could use certain tags in certain language and get featured, and then get a double listing, right? You would be there, and then you would also be below, ideally,
Right.
because they're looking at the organic stuff, but they're looking for certain natural language patterns within that featured snippet, and that's why they show it. But now there's a lot of evidence that maybe you don't want that spot. So, the click-through rate's maybe not as high as the ones below that, frankly. So depending, right?
Got it. Okay. So it might not be a winning strategy. Then the next question is I've heard talk about how Google is looking for to deliver pages in search that are a better experience for the end user. And therefore, there was the industry was pushing to put various types of media on a page. So not just to have a blog post with written word, but maybe embed a video on there, maybe embed an audio file, put some photos related to the content itself. Are you finding any evidence of that being valuable in how you rank, or is that, or have we moved past that?
Yes, and we have moved past that to some extent, right? So the algorithm does look at a page and does say, okay, is there media on this page? It's kind of one of the things that the algorithm does look at, but I wouldn't get too focused on it, right? You need to look at what the competitors on that page are doing for that particular search, and are you providing as much value or more value than they are? And if that includes, a video, or some kind of download, or a sign up form, or anything of that nature, are you providing that same or similar or better experience, essentially, right? And if you're doing that, you're in good shape. But yeah, I think the answer to your question is that they do look at that stuff, right? The media is important. But it's more as a traditionally more as a spam check, right?
Mhm.
It to eliminate gaming of the algorithm, essentially.
Yeah, because I mean, I could see. I mean, attorneys tell me all the time, like, how am I supposed to produce this content? I don't have any time. So if
Right.
you're already writing a piece, it would make sense to record a video that covers exactly that piece, right? You don't have to
Yeah.
figure out what to talk about. You've already got the content written. You can even, if you've got a writer on staff or somebody that could write, or maybe you find a writer on Upwork or something like that, you can record the video and then hand that off to the writer and say, hey, make a blog post out of this. And then you've got that video to embed, which they can link back to your YouTube channel, and they can play
Right.
off of each other. You kind of get more bang for your buck with the effort that you're doing. So if it helps with SEO, then it increases the argument of doing something like that. All right, I want to switch gears again. We've talked about SEO in theory and what it does for you. Um, we've got all kinds of firms listening to the show. We've got people who are brand new. Their law firm is less than a year old. They're trying to figure out how to get clients. They haven't even figured out how to get referrals yet. We've got people who have been in business for a long time, but they're still solo. They're trying to grow, but they just can't seem to get consistent growth. And then we've got people who are, multi-attorney law firm. Maybe they're a couple million in revenue, and they've got some money to spend. How does somebody navigate where to get started? Like what should they? Is there a way that they can, some sort of algorithm you can walk them through to determine, is this something I spend my own sweat equity on? Is this something I invest in? What kind of investment should I expect to make? I know there's all kinds of companies out there, and many of them are not really good. I know early on when I started working with, in a coaching capacity with law firms, one of the things that I was trying to help them do is to choose a vendor. And I wished that I had like a short list for them of, hey, these are,
Yeah.
5 really good SEO companies that you can use. But instead, I was sending them on a research mission, which looked like it was an impossible one to solve, to try
Yeah.
to narrow down the playing field and figure out who do I use. So I know there's a lot of questions here, but if you kind of just walk us through how somebody navigates that decision, from the vendor point of view, right? How are you setting yourself up to get clients, expecting that this is what somebody's going through, so that they can figure out how to navigate this?
Yeah. That's a lot. It's a lot. It's a tough question. But essentially it's kind of a mixture of content marketing and geared with a bent towards SEO. So a lot of the times if you want to ask, say, hey, just show me maybe one client you've worked on, just one will tell you the entire story, right? And go to their blog and go see what kind of content is published on that blog. Okay. Is every piece a resource, right? That's going to tell you everything you need to know. And does it speak to potential clients that would work with that firm, right? Um, and that's really a good measure of, is your SEO company that you're looking to hire, are they up on the latest and greatest, right? Um, and if they are, then that content will show. It's really a pretty simple test, but what you'll be surprised to see is that there's a lot of 700 and 800 word blog posts that aren't necessarily geared or providing a resource that a user would find valuable. So, for instance, you take that topic of that blog piece, right, and plop that topic into Google and see what comes up on page one. And if it's a bunch of in-depth resources that are, you know, 15 to 2,500 words long, that provide ton of value, but that firm has been writing 5, 6, 700 word pieces on their client, website, then that's a red flag, right? Because SEO now is content marketing, right?
Mhm.
And if you're following that plan of every page of resource, you will win out in the end. That is the most important thing to understand in SEO right now. It's absolutely the most important thing in SEO to understand. The backlinks and all that stuff, they're important too, but you can't have rankings without creating that resource and providing value. Google is looking at entity search again.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, if your firm that you're looking to hire is doing that for their clients, that's a fantastic sign. You have to do a little digging. That's it. Just plop that keyword search term into Google, but it will tell you really quickly is my SEO firm doing it the right way, right? Um, and I can unfortunately tell you that a majority of them are not. Um, but not all is lost. I'm sure there are some pages on that website that are probably somewhat valuable, just by happenstance. But
What should somebody budget? Give me a ballpark of what somebody should budget to get started with SEO, and what's the time frame that they should expect to invest before they start to see results. And I know that you can't answer how long it'll take for them to start seeing results, but
sure.
I'm talking about from a business owner perspective. They have to make a decision whether or not they have the cash flow to invest in this, whether
Yeah.
they have the runway to invest in this. And therefore, we can't just hide behind, okay, we don't have an answer for you. We need to give them some sort of way to be able to say, okay, you have to expect that it might take as long as 12 months. You have to expect that it might cost you $2,500 a month. So you have to be ready to plunk down 2,500 times 12 before you
Yeah.
start seeing results, right? That's
Yeah.
the kind of answer I'm looking for. And I don't need you to nail it, but give us some idea of how somebody can approach this from a business decision, whether this is a good place for them to focus their marketing budget.
Yeah, and it really is for folks that have a little bit of a budget to work with, right? You're probably already established. You're bringing in clients on the regular. Typically, you're going to look at minimum 2,500, right? Minimum 25 to $5,000 a month is what you're looking at, and that's just so that you can have great people write great content, put it in, make sense of it all, and do good work, right? It's simple. And yeah, you want to be able to invest long term. I always say SEO is, once you start it, you don't ever want to stop, because once you get to the top, the return on investment is substantial, right? You kind of see that it's like a snowball going downhill, except the opposite direction. It gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and it gets harder to compete with you, right? Because this is based on competition. And if you're doing it for years and years and years, it's going to be really difficult when somebody
You've got
looks
a
at
war
that.
chest of really high quality content, and
Yeah,
therefore it's harder to unseat you. I get it. I
yeah,
get it totally.
yeah.
Now, do you have any sort of metrics as far as what kind of lead flow somebody might expect to get when they're ranking at the top for various searches related to their industry?
Yeah, it's anywhere from, typically, anywhere from 2 to just above 5%, right?
Of 2 to
So
5% of what? Of page hits?
of overall traffic,
Okay.
So you're going to get that, and depending on your website, and how well you convert that traffic, um, is going to show you how good you're going to do, right?
Sounds
So
like we need to do a whole nother podcast on how to get your website to convert traffic that's coming
right,
to
it's a
it.
totally different ball game. Totally different ball game. Right. But yeah, that all that stuff goes into it, right? It's all super duper important. Um, but if you you got to be at the top first, right?
Yeah, you got to have people getting to your website before you could try to convert them. If you're
Yeah.
on page 2, you're probably not getting anybody on your website unless they happen to know you or were referred to you, and then they're looking for you specifically. But other than that, your website is kind of meaningless, which is why I think that when somebody's new, they spend too much effort on their website and not enough effort on other things that are more important, like letting people know that they're in business and trying to just get basic referrals from family and friends,
Yeah.
and other professionals, creating relationships there, because that's really how you're going to get started. You're not going to get started with ranking in SEO.
It's uphill battle for sure.
Yeah. Now, another thing that I found interesting in the industry, and maybe it exists and I haven't found it yet, but there isn't a place where you can go
Mhm.
that is a one-stop marketing shop that will do your SEO for you, run a paid advertising campaign for cold traffic on Facebook, and do pay-per-click on Google, and also help you with your YouTube strategy. Like, there's so many different directions you can
Right.
go in digital marketing, and there isn't a place where you can go and just say, hey, I've got $15,000 a month, go make it all happen for me. And you kind of like have this fragmented approach where you either are doing some pieces yourself, or, I mean, if you're doing video, you got to do that yourself, right? You got to create your own videos, but or somebody on your staff. But the actual editing and posting of it and all of that, it just seems like the legal marketing services industry hasn't yet gotten to the point where you can get a cohesive marketing strategy from one place. Do you know why that is, and what is the answer for somebody who's in that firm owner spot? Are they left to just deal with 5 or 6 vendors and have none of them talking to each other?
Well, um, hopefully they can work together nicely. You know, we're definitely a specialty vendor, right? And that's part of the strength is that, when I go back to that research I completed on the 15 different major metro areas across the United States, 97% of the firms that were doing SEO were not doing it correctly. So whoever they were working with, whether it was a multiple strategy firm, nobody's doing it right. So I want to make sure the SEO is right first. Yeah, I mean, it's easy for us to work with all kinds of people, right? I wish that um, becoming extremely, I guess, good at SEO were simple. Um, I think it's simple now, but that's only because I've been doing it for so long, and it is a simple formula, right? But if you don't have that formula, then you're kind of left in the dark on that. I wish I had a better answer for your question.
Right. No, and I don't expect you to predict the industry or anything like that. I just know that I'm talking to your clients, right? I'm
Yeah,
talking to the people who are looking to invest in their marketing. They want one thing.
yeah,
They want more clients. That's it. That's what they want. And they want to be able to figure out the best way to do that, the most efficient way to put their money to work. And the
right.
problem is when they talk to somebody like you're going to sell them SEO. You're
Well,
not going to tell them. I'll let you interrupt. This is, it
sure.
was not a presidential debate. I'll let you get your word in a moment, because I'm probably accusing you of something that may not be true, but your business is SEO, and therefore it's your
Yeah,
job to sell them SEO. Now, it could be that you tell them, hey, you're not ready for SEO. That's possible,
yeah,
and I'll let you talk about that. But the reality is that there's so many different places that they can put their money and they
yeah,
can put their effort, and there isn't a great go-to resource for them to walk in and say, and they say, okay, where are you at? How many clients do you get now? Let's look at your website traffic. Let's look at your other efforts. Let's look at the size of your firm and your capacity. Okay, now we get the whole picture of where you're at and where you want to go. Here's the plan for you. First, you gotta get Google My Business to be completely up to snuff and working for you. We got to get you to rate in the map pack. And then we're gonna do a video content strategy that's gonna start feeding Facebook and get your Facebook page to rank properly. Then we're gonna go to and attack SEO, and then so like here's the roadmap for you on how we're gonna put all these pieces into play and together, knowing that today your budget is only X and therefore you can't afford step number 10 right now. However, with these other efforts, we're going to increase your clients and therefore you're going to be able to increase your marketing budget and you're going to step into this plan. That's what I think needs to be out there in the industry, but I don't see it. I don't see it out there. What's your take as a vendor, when somebody comes in, how do you approach that? And do you think that you're right, there are people who are not ready for SEO and I send them packing?
You may need to hire a marketing manager. That may be your solution, right? And there are a lot of people that aren't ready for SEO, right? A lot of folks there's so much misinformation and disinformation on SEO out there and for anybody to come in and think, oh yeah, we're going to do SEO for a few months and we're going to get this fantastic return on our investment. Well, and you hear those stories, right? And those stories are like typically softball pitches, right? You have this amazing, huge brand, this firm that's been around for 100 years. They've had a website for 20 plus. Everything's set up for you, but you just make a few tweaks like any good SEO would do, and you increase revenue by 60% overnight. Well, that's not always going to happen, right?
That almost never happens, right?
It almost never happens, but that's the story you always hear. That's
Right.
the story you always hear, right? It's a long-term play. And if they're, if somebody comes, our ideal client is somebody that's done SEO before and failed, honestly, right? That's ideal.
It's also a tough sell.
That's okay. If smart people come to me, and we had sit down and have a conversation, typically that's my best client, honestly, because I will explain the difference, like we've talked about, some of the differences in what we're going to do versus what's always been done traditionally, both on site and off site. And it's going to open their eyes and, allow them to, once they understand the differences, there's a light switch that goes off, right? And they're like, oh, you mean they were doing it wrong the whole time, or we should have done this way, or, this is why when they built 50 backlinks, it didn't do anything for us. Right. Yeah, there's reasons behind everything, but I don't want anybody to come, to us and think that SEO is going to fix your short-term problems, because it's not. It's for, are you getting established? Are you established, essentially? And are you ready to take things to that next level? Right now, for those folks that, are maybe not, ready to take it to that next level. I mean, you can at least start learning about it and know and understand more about search engine optimization so that you can be better equipped when you do go to hire someone, right? I think that's awfully important.
Yeah. So you work with somebody, you get them to rank, people are clicking on their website, they're, clicking on the link, they're getting on their website. How important at that point is Google reviews? It's almost like there's two different ways that people are finding you, right? If they're going into Google and saying, hey, I'm looking for a personal injury attorney in the Denver area, making that decision. And we were talking about how, that process when you're selling to them. I think we got the idea. Basically, you gotta you got to do your due diligence. You got to ask somebody for, examples of clients that they serve and see how they're ranking and what their content looks like. And you have to be pretty sure that SEO is the right next step for you. You can't let a vendor strong arm you into it. You have to play, and I got to give it a chance to happen. And that's a lot of money. $2,500 to $5,000 a month is a lot of money to invest, and with kind of like let's hope this works kind of attitude. So I think you really need to be very, very selective in who you're going to work with, and enter this arrangement and with that mindset. I want to go back to a technical question, which is, SEO for somebody who is got something that's for everybody, right? I sell a really cool cell phone charger for the car, and so I get SEO, and I get ranked in SEO, and practically anybody and their mother needs a cell phone charger for the car unless they don't own a car. So the world is my oyster when it comes to that, right? A law firm might only serve a 20-mile, 30-mile area, radius from their office. They don't need to conquer the world. They just need to conquer that radius. But unless the search term is including somebody's location in Denver, they don't need to rank for Los Angeles, right? And how do you navigate that as a vendor? How does somebody approach that or understand that as a law firm that's approaching SEO to make sure that I'm not investing more than I need to rank at the top all over the country when all I need is this, to rank in my local community?
Yeah, that's quite important. And luckily, Google's getting really good at understanding entities and understanding location. That includes city and state. And so writing about content that's city and state related, there are some, certain laws that are like no pay, no play wouldn't be in effect in certain states, right? And you can make it state specific. So these kind of things you're going to write about um, are going to be geared towards a local perspective, right? You don't, unless you're to a level where you want to gobble up leads all across the country, which is very few law firms, right?
Mm-hmm.
You are going to be targeting local clients and writing for local clients.
So how does, on the back end, how does Google do that? How does Google, know when to present that result and that it's a local specific type of search versus something more broad?
Yeah, they're looking at IP address and your location. So they're feeding different searches based on that information, right? And so if I'm searching from California, I'm going to get a very different result than if I'm searching from New York, and that's it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did notice that. Well, when I was looking for specific things, I did notice that it was different. Like if I just put into the web browser, it's going to return local firms to me, whereas somebody in another area will return for them. My question is, if I go into my web browser and I put in personal injury attorney, right? And I don't put near me. I don't put, Google is smart enough to say, hey, I'm going to return personal injury attorneys that are near you based on your IP address, based on your geographic location, your browser is telling me, and it's going to give me relevant responses to my area. But what I want to know is if I put in a personal, how much should I pay for a personal injury attorney? Or what's the process to go through a personal injury suit? Is Google smart enough to say, hey, this is a website that serves your geographic location that has good content for this. Let me give them first versus somebody who's across the country. Like, does Google know that that's more valuable to me?
Yeah, they are, and they're getting smarter. So that kind of stuff is definitely relevant. So if there's a decent sized search volume around a particular topic, and even though it's an attorney in a smaller city, we write about that stuff, because it's important. It's things that people want to know. So it does provide value.
Yeah, actually, while you were talking, I put in how much does it cost for a real estate attorney? But the funny thing is I'm not getting responses from any lawyer websites. I'm getting from, a real estate investing
Right.
website, a lawguideline.org,
Yeah.
Thumbtack, so I'm getting these
Yeah.
big sites. I'm not actually getting an attorney's website.
Yeah, and that's interesting, right? So you'd go in there, you'd plop that search term into Ahrefs and see what kind of search volume is around that, and see if you could provide a better resource, right?
Right.
And then take it to the next level.
Right. And then you start thinking about, okay, what is the consumer going to look for? So maybe I would say how to choose a real estate attorney. And, you put that in and start to look and see what comes up. And interestingly enough, yeah, I'm not getting, certainly no attorney websites are coming up. I am getting ads.
Sure.
Legal Shield came up as an ad, interestingly, which is a insurance plan for legal services.
Right.
I've recently learned Lexology, which I don't even know what that is. So definitely not attorney websites. All right, so I want to wrap this up. I want to leave this conversation with something that a takeaway that our listeners can use. So I'm going to do two things. Number one, I'm going to ask you for something specific, but number two, I want you to also share with us. I know that you have a resource that you want to provide our listeners, some sort of training. I want you to talk about that and let them know how to get that as well. So there's two types of listeners who are listening to this. There's somebody who says, okay, I need to do SEO and I'm going to do it myself. And then there's somebody who's listening saying, I need to do SEO and I'm going to use an agency. Give me your top. I know those are two totally different people. So we're going to give two separate tips. Your top tip on what they should do next, or what's the key thing I should look out for in this process for each of those two people. And then you can go straight into letting us know about that course that you have.
Yeah. For somebody that's going to hire an agency, I mean, the thing is, just get one, even just one example from the firm that you're considering hiring, right? And what kind of content are they creating? And is it geared towards taking advantage of everything that Google's has to offer? And if that's the case, then you're probably going to be working with somebody that's pretty solid, right? And that's, if you don't have that budget yet, if you're just starting out, I think there's a fantastic resource that I do want to provide everybody. And I personally believe that if you go through this training, you will, and it's about 3.5 hours, all video training, online portal, that you're going to know more than 99.9% of SEOs out there, which is pretty fantastic, I think. It's going to help you eliminate. So when you are ready to get started, it's going to help you eliminate the stuff that doesn't work and focus on the stuff that does. And so if you guys are interested, we are going to provide that to Moshe's listeners free of charge. So if you hop on over to attorneyseotraining.com/profit with law, all one word, attorneyseotraining.com/profit with law, you're actually going to be able to get access to that training, and it's not going to cost you the normal $997. So enjoy that, because like lots of folks, COVID has changed some things, and maybe if you got a little bit of extra time, and I know you probably maybe you have absorbed 100 plus of Moshe's podcasts during this time, which is fantastic. But throw some SEO training in there as well. You can learn, get educated, and then whoever you do decide to work with, you'll be starting off on the right foot so that there won't be any backpedaling, because right now in the industry, there's so much backpedaling. And, when we go to work with a client and we're removing half of the website, there's got to be some tears shed, right? They think about that and money that they've invested, over the past year, 2, 3 years, and it's not really gotten them anywhere. There's got to be some tears that we're not seeing when we remove half their content and then increase their rankings. So.
Yeah, absolutely. One last thing. So if somebody wants to hire an agency and they're looking to hire your agency, how do they get in touch with you?
Yeah, you just hop on over to advocateseo.com. Simple. Get in touch with us there. We can do a market analysis for you, see if it is viable. If you're in a big city, it is almost always viable, but if you're in a smaller city, you want to see what kind of potential return on investment there is. That's the kind of stuff we can look at for you to see if there is an opportunity. Number one, if there's not, then no sense in going after it, right?
Yeah, awesome. Chris, this has been a great conversation, a lot of fun. We did have a great conversation around SEO. I enjoyed it. It was very informative to me, and I hope it was informative to our listeners as well. Folks, we're going to put all of these links in the show notes. So if you look in your podcast player beneath the episode that's playing, it should be right there. If not, and I don't know what the episode number is going to be, but you go to profitwithlaw.com / on the episode number, and you'll be able to get to the show notes page on our website. It's got all the links there, as well as the offers that Chris has put out to us, the generous offers for his free training program, as well as if you want to check out his SEO services directly by going to his website. Chris, thank you so much for being here. Thanks for your time, your generosity. And I hope that this helps move the needle forward for somebody out there with their SEO. And that this conversation helped somebody get their business moving forward in the right direction.
Exactly. I hope to provide some value and at least get people headed in the right direction. I appreciate it, Moshe.
Well, folks, there you have it. Another great interview in the bag. And we're going to be announcing, if we haven't already, I don't know when this is going to be released, we're going to be announcing our upcoming Law Firm Growth Summit. It's going to be in February of 2021. And tickets are going to be going on sale shortly. So stay tuned for information about that. Really excited about it. And it's going to be an amazing event. It's going to be a very different type of event than our event in December of 2019. We're really looking to take it up a number of notches and make it a memorable experience for you. So really excited to be sharing some more details about that real soon. Take care. Have a great day. That's it for this week's episode of Profit with Law. If you have enjoyed the show, please consider sharing it with at least one person. Imagine how many lives we can change if we each shared this episode. Another way to share the episode is on social media. We appreciate your support and look forward to you joining us again next week.